From our studio in Brisbane. Pauline, good evening.
Good evening, Alan. Hello.
Thank you. Just repeat to our viewers what exactly happened to you on the security front once you entered the corridors with the burqa on.
Correct. I put the burqa on in my office and I walked out of my office door, down the corridor, and then I went down the stairwell to the bottom. At the bottom of the stairs, I was met by two security guards. And following behind me was Brian Burston, who followed me down the corridor and down the stairs. The two security guards at no point asked who I was, asked to see my face. I then walked up the corridor towards the chamber door. Senator Wilson, the Green senator, stopped and he actually put out his hand and I shook his hand. He had no idea it was me under that burqa. And I've got to say, in the full year I've been in that parliament, he has not shaken my hand since. It was a symbol to him and he said words to the effect, you know, good on you. And then he actually kept going. Later I was to learn from him, he thought I was a protester in the parliament and I was being escorted by the guards. If that be the case, you know, I really pity his views on it, that someone, you know, wearing a full burqa to go up and shake their hand. I then proceeded to the chamber door and I went through the chamber. The attendant, who's not a security guard, but the attendant, he rose from his chair, stood at me and he was gasping. And it's like and he didn't know what to do. And I didn't speak. I never spoke a word. Anyway, Senator Burston was saying, "It is Senator Hanson." He said it twice. Then he actually stood to the side and let me pass and I went and sat in my chair. But at no time did anyone ever check my identity, ask me if it was me. They didn't have voice recognition and definitely not face recognition.
I'll just make the point though, Senator Hanson, it's Peter Credlin here. I'll make the point though,
yes.
But you had Senator Burston with you, so he in effect would have vouched for you all the way through those various security channels. Now, don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong, I have no truck with the burqa. I would ban it in this country. I would not have any Australian wear it in anywhere in public at all. I find it oppressive. I find it it's subjugation.
It is.
And I completely agree with one of those comments that Alan read out. If you are a feminist, and I say this particularly to the women on the left, if you are a feminist, you stand against the burqa for all women and particularly in this country. But I see this more as an issue about Islam and the burqa and women than I do it as a security issue, by the very nature that to be inside that perimeter of the parliament, you have a pass and you had Senator Burston with you. Is that a fair comment? Is that the point you were trying to make?
No, because when I actually went into the chamber, when I first went into Parliament, and one of the members there wears a hat, so I actually asked Senator Parry, who's the President, what is the dress code for the Parliament? He said there is none. There's no dress code.
It was removed in relation to the Senate some time ago, yes.
Yeah, so anyway, what I was moving my private member's bill about banning the burqa nationally, and I was making a statement in that chamber because we actually need to show our faces for facial recognition when it comes to our vote. So that was also very important, and I think if we're going to deal with this issue, deal with it now before we ever have a Muslim elected to Parliament who wears the full burqa. How are we going to deal with that? And I think it's very important. We need to discuss this. But my whole issue was about, I do believe the burqa should be banned. I think it's confronting. You know, I'll tell you something honestly. Since that last Thursday, now I've travelled from Canberra to Tasmania to Sydney to Brisbane. Now I've been out and about, I've been to the shopping centres in Sydney today. Not one person has criticised me. Actually, I've been swamped with people coming up congratulating me. A woman from Egypt, she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. We actually have left Egypt, the oppression there, and we are here. She was nearly crying. She said, I'm nearly crying. And I have had that from a lot of migrants that have come here, left these countries where they have been oppressed by Islamic political ideology. They don't want the burqa here, and yet we are turning a blind eye to it. I cannot understand why these politicians won't open up for debate.
The other thing, Pauline, is this question of theology. I mean, Brandis is supposed to be an intelligent man who completely ignores the fact that under Islamic theology there's no requirement to wear a burqa. Earlier tonight on Andrew Bolt's program, Hassit Salih, who's the former president of the Australian Federation of Islamic Councils, had something to say, and there it is. He said, "I don't often applaud Pauline Hanson. It's about time the myth of the burqa being Islamic dress was blown out of the water." That's a Muslim lawyer. He said, "The sooner Muslim women get rid of this hideous garb, the better."
You know, Alan, I have problems about this with the burqa because I think they are the radical Islamists that are wearing it, and it's virtually using our laws to say we're going to do whatever we want here. I think they are challenging because people who walk into a bank can't wear a hat. I even know of a man who's been told to take his hat off, just a hat. Yes, I can understand a balaclava or even a helmet, but there's no equality here whatsoever, and Australians are fed up with it.
And Pauline, what's the
status? They don't want to
status?
see the burqa.
What's the status, therefore, of your bill to ban the burqa? Where is it?
It didn't get passed in the Parliament, but what this has done is now Senator Parry is going to open up to the Senate to discuss about the dress code in the Senate. I think it's important. I think it's a start, and I am so proud of Australians that are now opening this up for discussion, for debate, and that's what it's all about. We can't have a say in this country because of political correctness or offending someone. Well, I think it's very important. This is all about our future, about the future generations, and nowhere in the wide world do I want my daughter or my grandchildren down the track being forced to wear a burqa because we were too gutless to stand up and say it is un-Australian. Well, let these people come here and stop the oppression of women.
I think it's really interesting, I've just come back from Europe where the burqa is banned in a number of countries. It's banned in France, it's banned in Belgium, there's partial bans in Italy, there's partial bans in the Netherlands. In fact, it's banned in a lot of African places like, certainly regionally, in Chad and the Congo. Yet in Australia...
And Muslim countries as well.
Absolutely, Pauline. We're having a debate about whether to take gendered toys out of creches and childcare centres because we don't want a child, God forbid, picking up Barbie and becoming, having a damaged sense of self. We have those sorts of debates, but we're not prepared, particularly in the mainstream media, to have a conversation about a garb that's cloaked in a religious impost. It's told to women of the Islamic faith that is a religious requirement. It is not. It is absolutely not. It's sexist and it's designed to subjugate women. And nothing horrifies me more than to be overseas, particularly in Britain, where you will see a lot of burqas and niqabs on the street, to see a young girl, a 7 or 8 year old girl, with the whole promise of life in a Western country before her, in Western clothing, running behind a mother who is completely covered in black, knowing that that is the future that little girl will inherit.
Good on you, Peter. Look, just let me quote Ayaan Hirsi Ali is a research fellow at the Hoover Institute at Stanford University. She's the author of an outstanding book which is very well worth reading, Heretic: Why Islam Needs a Reformation Now. She's a former Muslim and she's been in all sorts of trouble around the world for condemning the way in which the religion is practiced. She wrote at the weekend, and she said of Pauline Hanson, quote, "She didn't need fancy dress to make the point she wants to make, which is that burqas ought to be banned. But for me," she said, and this is what Peta made the point before, "the issue is not security alone. It's the equality of women. Yes. Expecting half of humanity to go around covered in black sacks is evil sexism. We should no more want to see it imported into Australia than we should want to see wife-beating legalised." To both of you, can I just say, firstly to you, Pauline, what is wrong, therefore, with the Brandises of this world who can't understand that viewpoint?
Political correctness, Alan, what's happening is 15 of the lower house seats in the House of Reps is actually dominated by Muslims. You have 50.4% of the populace living in those 15 seats. Therefore, they are actually controlled by the Muslim vote, and they don't want to lose the Muslim vote. So that's all Labor-controlled seats. They're trying to win it back. The Libs are trying to win it back, those seats, if they can. I doubt it very much. So they're actually control. The last census of 2016, the figures I have is now we're at 750,000 Muslims in the country and growing rapidly. So if we don't address this now, it will get to a stage in this country we will not have the will or the power to be able to change it. So, you know, it's the people out there. If they want to change it, well, then they have the people power can change it. But if you do absolutely nothing, well, then you're going to suffer, like many other countries around the world, by the takeover of Islam and everything it stands for, which is not our culture, our way of life. And so, you know, it's either do something about it now, and that's what I did last Thursday, and I'll keep doing. Everything that I believe in is for this country and the people.
I think the problem for the coalition, though, Pauline, is I do agree with you for Labor in those seats, those marginal seats. It is a question of the Arab vote or the Muslim vote more broadly, but I don't think that's necessarily the issue for the coalition. I think the coalition under Malcolm Turnbull wants to be seen as centrist as opposed to being centre-right. We've never won power from anywhere other than the centre-right and held it, led by Conservatives. But the problem is, my criticism, I think what you did was a stunt. I don't necessarily like to see stunts in the chamber, but when you're on the crossbench, you have a lot more leeway than when you are a major party. But nonetheless, my criticism of the events of last week were related primarily to George Brandis, because I do not think the way he spoke to you about this matter was the way I think the Senate leader from the Conservative side of politics should deal with this issue. If the coalition wants to know why its vote has plummeted and is staying low, and why you are taking votes away from the coalition, is because you will say the word Islam and you will discuss the issue of the burqa and many other facets. Now, unless the coalition starts to take on these issues and allow people to have a voice, the coalition will not.
Good on you. Well done. Well, Pauline, well done.
Yeah.
You've actually hit the nail on the head yet again and put a nail in a few coffins. Thank you, and we'll talk again, but keep at it, because out there, they're cheering. I can tell you, whether Brandis or Turnbull like it or not, they are cheering. They, like you, have had a gutful. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Alan.
There's
Thanks, Peter.
Pauline,
Bye.
Senator Pauline Hanson. We'll take a break and be back with an extraordinary, almost unbelievable story.
This